Hi friends, welcome to Oracle Aura, a space to absorb information for your soul's vibration where we discuss all things metaphysical, holistic, and spiritual methods for self-development. I am so excited about this episode. I invited Jordan onto the podcast because I saw her content on Instagram about gene keys and I was just so interested in gene keys. Something about her and the way that she spoke about this modality and this tool really stuck out to me, and I'm so glad that I listened to my intuition and shot her a message because wow, gene keys, just since the time that we recorded this episode, have become an amazing tool in my life that I am so grateful for. And they really just gave me personally the clarity to align, if that makes sense, to really just align with my most authentic way of being. And we always have those answers within ourselves, right? We don't need something from the outside to give us that alignment, but it can be really amazing to just take advantage of these tools that are brought from spirit world to the physical world through different people, through different modalities. And for myself, the gene keys have given me the clarity to allow ideas to just flow to me rather than actively seeking them out. And that is a part of my personal chart. So maybe when you look at your chart, it'll be something completely different. But if you do want to look up your personal gene keys, you can always go to thegenekeys.com and look up your chart. It's kind of like an astrology chart, but it's way more specific, and it's not based off of the astrological signs. So it's way more specific than that, but we'll get into that in the episode. Anywho, our guest today is Jordan Cardarelli. She is a Gene Keys guide and Psych K facilitator. She blends these two modern healing modalities to effect deep transformation in the lives of her clients. She assists in realigning others with their highest selves by uncovering their soul's path in this lifetime and healing any subconscious blocks to getting there. I really enjoyed this conversation, and honestly, I got so much more out of the gene keys than I originally anticipated. And after this recording, I even ordered the Gene Keys book and I've been studying them. So I really hope you guys enjoy this episode, and we'll dive right into it. Hi, Jordan. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Jada, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been following you on Instagram for a little while, and I'm not going to lie, I really don't know that much about gene keys, but I find it super intriguing.
Amazing. I feel like you're not alone. A lot of people don't know a ton about the gene keys just because, I feel really that human design has taken off in terms of a modern kind of cosmic modality. And then, the gene keys is sort of even newer. So I find it still very niche for most people.
Cool. So I do know about human design a little bit. Obviously, I know about astrology. So I know that with astrology, so for anybody listening, all of these modalities and all of these tools use your birth time and location as a way to kind of map out parts of who you are. So whenever you're looking up your astrological chart, you're entering that information and you're seeing like where the planets were at that time. When you're looking up your human design, you're seeing, from my understanding, you're learning about your type of energy. And so what are gene keys?
Yeah, good question. So all of the modalities are definitely based on the planets. The difference between them is the archetypes that they use. So like in astrology, there's 12 archetypes that we know of as the signs, and in the gene keys there's 64. So
Wow.
yeah, that span the sky, right? So depending where the planets are, which of the 64, we call them gene keys, that planet falls in, that means something really specific for you. And yeah, so the difference between really the gene keys and astrology or even human design is I find it's very much a personal experience. I call the gene keys profile a portal to your soul. So it really does depict a lot about like personality and gifts and strengths and things like that. But what's even more powerful about this system is that you can access the frequency spectrum. So you can see sort of the lower frequency expression of really your genes. And then on the flip side, the higher frequency expression of them. So within that, you can really see, wow, a picture of you maybe at your lowest frequency expression, or when you're kind of like at your worst or in your shadow. It's called the shadow, and really actually do something about that. So unpack and learn more about your shadow, and that's how you actually elevate your frequency through your gene keys profile. So it's I find it a little bit deeper in terms of healing. I really call the gene keys a healing modality, and I don't know if everybody would love me saying that or agree with that, but it really is, because it gives you the opportunity to learn more about yourself and actually heal what's keeping you dense instead of keeping you in alignment with your highest self.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that makes sense what you're saying about kind of seeing the shadow side of parts of yourself and then seeing this like evolved, high vibrational, like side
Mhm.
of the same coin.
Yeah.
Because to me, like I've been really into astrology for like 10 years now. And for me, I've kind of realized that every single sign has these unevolved traits and these evolved traits, right? These lower vibrational,
Oh,
habitual, like automatic traits. And then on the flip side, these like high vibrational, like, you know, conscious things. So, how did the gene keys come into your life? Like this is
yeah.
such like a niche modality. Did someone else introduce it to you or did you just have curiosity about it?
hmm Yeah, good question. They definitely found me. I had studied human design prior to learning about the gene keys, so they are very similar. Because if so, for anyone listening who knows more about human design, I'm sure there's lots of people out there. The 64 gates of your human design profile, so those like numbers that run on the opposite sides, those are based on the I Ching as well. So the gene keys actually takes 11 of those specific placements, and then that's where your profile is derived. So the gene keys is like a snapshot of those gates. Um, so I was studying human design formally with a teacher named Chetan Parkin, who's one of the original guys who studied with Ra Uru, who the founder of human design, like way back. Um, I think it was in the 80s, 90s that they were really spreading it throughout Europe mostly. And so I learned about human design, and it had really changed my life learning that modality. And I thought I was going to be sharing that with other people, but there was just something sort of missing, that I just felt there was something missing. And that's sort of a longer story, but I knew that there was like little pieces that weren't there that I knew that I had to share as well.
You can totally go into it. Like if you feel like you're like, "Oh, that's a long story," like it's okay.
Okay, so I can get
Yeah.
into a weird long story.
Yes, that's totally fine. That's why we're here.
Okay. Oh, perfect, perfect. So yeah, so this was at a time things were shifting really quickly in my life, and some people might call it a spiritual awakening, or a part on my path of an awakening where
Mhm.
you know, there's layers that unfold. And this particular layer had a lot to do with my work. And I had just left a corporate job. I worked in corporate finance for almost 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and, I have that side of me, right, which is kind of funny, like a very logical side to me as well.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not my path, and it's not why I'm here. So as it happens, when you're in misalignment like that for so long, you end up getting kind of pushed out of
Yeah.
what in a not so comfortable way sometimes. If you're stuck, like if you're staying stuck, the universe is going to push you, and sometimes it's not so
You're like,
comfortable.
"Why me? I was so comfortable, universe."
It's like, what happened? Everything was fine. But then
Yeah.
you start to realize how not fine it was, right?
Mm.
Um, so yeah, so I was transitioning out of that life, a whole different lifestyle than I live now. And eventually it just got so loud that I was like, I quit without a plan B. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna
Wow.
do.
You were like,
But
"This isn't authentic anymore. I cannot ignore my inner voice anymore. I have to just take the first step and the universe will catch me."
totally,
Yeah.
exactly. And actually at this time I was having quite a bit of physical symptoms of it was not just like emotional or mental discomfort. At this point I was like suffering from hormonal issues and burnout,
Mm.
adrenal
It
fatigue.
definitely manifests in the body for sure.
Oh, it's so crazy. So crazy. I'm still
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um and so I quit the corporate job, and I was kind of dabbling in some modalities that I felt, was more what I needed to share. And I knew at this point that my path was in spirituality. I was actually, meant to be sharing spiritual wisdom with others. And it took a long time to be comfortable with that reality too. So I was just kind of dabbling and seeing, like, what is it? Is it Reiki? Is it astrology? Is it human design? And really thought it was human design because of the impact that system had on me.
Mm.
And I was already like creating this framework for how I was going to launch this business and Instagram platform. And then I just kept getting like a no, 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 no. And at this point, I was like in such a free fall in my life that I was just like, like, screw it. I'm not gonna stop following my intuition at this point. Like, why would I do that? Right. So
Yeah.
I just kept going with my gut. And it was 2 summers ago, um, 2 springs 2 springtimes ago, where I just kept hearing "Gene Keys, Gene Keys, Gene Keys," and it's like, "What's that? That's so interesting," because it was spoken about in relation to human design. So I was like, "Oh, why haven't I not have I not heard of this?" And, so I ordered the book, The Gene Keys. So there's a book by Richard Rudd, it's called The Gene Keys. It's like the Bible of the Gene Keys. Similar to human design has like the book from Ra Uru, who it would be the same, like it's that text, it's the main material.
And what is the book called?
It's called The Gene Keys.
Oh, that's easy to
Yeah.
remember. I think I actually went to the Gene Keys website. Is that it's the
Yeah.
same? Okay, cool,
Yeah. 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 So that's the official Gene Keys website by Richard Rudd, who is the founder of the Gene Keys system.
cool.
Yeah. And so I ordered this book, and I pulled my profile, which you can do as well for free, using your birth information. And you can go to thegenekeys.com, the website, and generate that profile. And from there, you'll see the 11 gene keys that are specific to you. So I read about the gene keys that were mine, and it was just like magical experience, and like all the
Cool.
stars aligned. Yeah, and like just like full body chills. And just reading the introduction of the book, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is it," because it blended all of those things that just knew to be truth within myself that was always kind of maybe missing from other systems in my perspective.
Mm.
Yeah, because the Gene Keys really blends the concept of epigenetics in as well. So it really blends like science and spirituality into one, which I think is so beautiful. And yeah, it's just this portal for elevating your frequency. And so it just connected with me so deeply. And it was pretty soon after, reading the book like obsessively, like highlighting it a couple of times where I was like, you know what, I feel this is mine to share. Because I saw it as a healing modality again, and I knew, pretty soon on that I maybe see the system. Of course, I teach it and speak of it in a traditional manner, but I do have this kind of perspective on the profile, and the way that I share is like a little bit different, maybe than traditionally taught. And I was able to just kind of recite, you know, this information back to people and look at profiles, and really be able to distill it into like real simple terms. So I just kind of ran with it, and it's been amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Like hearing about you following your intuition that way is really inspiring because for me, when I'm in that kind of free fall state, there's this part of me that wants to just like grab onto the first thing that feels secure and run with that. And it
Mhm.
almost seems like I waste more time that way, or in the past, I have wasted more time that way by
Mhm.
trying to just say, but no, 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 this is safe and I have this figured out. Like, but by you listening to your intuition and just letting that voice guide you, you ended up with this modality that felt even more like aligned with who you are.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about the free fall state is when you're making decisions that are really heart centered, that you know are correct for you, you really are given all the tools and resources you need at the right time. But it can feel scary because sometimes it's at the last minute, like
Right.
at this point, I had quit my job, and I was like unemployed, and getting married in like 6 months. And, I was investing money in these programs, and I didn't feel like any of them were right. So I was definitely in a place where I was like, whoa, how is this going to turn around? Like when am I going to find my thing? And then, it does, it happens when it needs to.
Yeah, it happens when it's supposed to happen for sure.
Exactly.
So, was there any one like okay, let me start by saying I looked up my Gene Keys profile because I saw on your Instagram story. I was looking at your Instagram story this morning and you had posted
Mhm.
about like where people can find their Gene Keys, and I looked it up and it just looks so confusing to me.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
guess that's where, people who know about gene keys come in. Just like human design. Like if you look at your human design chart, you're like, what the heck is this?
Oh, yeah.
So where do you start? Like, is there any one specifically that, I mean, I see like IQ, vocation, life's work.
Yeah, so, um, it will look confusing. It's strange because it's the same again with human design too, and even astrology. When you look at the actual charts, they look very technical, which is funny because they're very, they're like cosmic, but they're also super technical. So don't be put off by that. I mean, so really, like, as just like a little tutorial of the profile, there's the 11 bubbles. They're called spheres.
Okay.
Yeah, and inside them you'll see your 11 gene keys. So your gene key will be the number before the decimal point. So it'll say like 11.5. So the 11 would be your gene key. And then the fifth, that would be the line number following the decimal point. I wouldn't get, if you're a beginner with the gene keys or human design, the line number is just like an additional flavor, but there's like so much depth and richness just in your initial gene key profile in general. So just start there with the 11. Um, what's really cool about the gene keys profile is that you can get like really specific about areas of life. So if you look, for example, your life's work, that's your sort of your lead gene key. It's where the sun is when you were born. So the rest of the gene keys profile revolves around your life's work. If you're
Oh,
following, yeah, if you're following sort of like the traditional, um, modality of the gene keys as taught by Richard Rudd, you would definitely start at the life's work and sort of follow it. Um, you'll see like there's a path that leads you through all of the green gene keys, which are,
cool.
yeah, your activation sequence, and then it runs up the center, which is called your Venus sequence, and then the Pearl sequence at the end, which is like the blue triangle. So you can definitely follow them in order. And what that does is it's like a beautiful unfolding that takes you sort of deeper and deeper and deeper into your story, really, your story as a human being here, and uncovering like truly what you're here to do and who you are. Um, for me, I haven't worked through my profile that way. I'm more intuitively called to the different aspects of the chart or profile depending on what it is that, myself or my clients are trying to up level or they're focusing on healing. So the activation sequence, I call it the gift path. I've sort of nicknamed them so that they're like just like really simple language.
Mhm.
Those, yeah, those are the green or partly green gene keys. They form like the diamond on the outside of your profile.
And for those of you listening, it looks like it's like
Mm.
a it's like a circle with 4 green dots around the outside, and then it's got 6 on the inside of that and 1 in the middle, and they're
Yeah,
not all green. Some of them are, like, colored in half one color and half another color,
yeah.
but you'll have to look yours up if you're listening because it's interesting.
Yeah, it almost looks like it's like sacred geometry or something, right?
Mhm.
Like it's like a little design. Um, so those are the four those are the 4 gene keys that make up the most outer shell of your personality. They say it's about 70% of your personality. So I kind of look at it like it's your sort of like your rising sign and your sun sign, let's say of your astrology profile, where it's like that outer shell of you, but truly it's these are huge components of who you are. So the 4 of them together, they weave in to be your purpose in this lifetime. And your purpose is really who you are, in terms of the way that the Gene Keys presents it, at least, right? So these are the 4 pillars of you. They're your 4 strongest gifts to share with others. And if you're looking at your Gene Keys profile and you're not really sure where to start, the gift path or that activation sequence, the green Gene Keys or the partly green Gene Keys, is the best place to start because it will have the most impact in pulling you into alignment. Often when someone is like way off track with these gene keys, whether they're living like really steeped in the shadow frequency of them or it's almost like unrecognizable, they're like, wow, like this doesn't feel like me at all. That generally speaking, that plays out in real life as like ruts, stagnation,
Mm,
like really, really disconnected from path and purpose. And like that person will always feel that way. So those 4 really pull you into alignment with who you are. Um,
cool. So, like, next to all of them, it says it'll have, like, 3 words, and I'm obviously, you know this, but I'm just describing this for everybody that's listening that's trying to just, like, imagine what this looks like.
mhm, yeah.
There's 3 words next to each of the bubbles, and there's, like, a little key at the bottom that says that each of the words represent, like, your essence, your creativity, and your challenge or your shadow. So there's, like, the city, the essence, the siddhi rather, the gift, the creativity, and then the shadow or the challenge. So, like, next to my life's work one, it says the top word or the essence says invincibility, and the creativity says determination, and then the shadow says, I think it says inertia.
Mhm, mhm. So you have the ninth
Yep.
gene key 9 in your life's work sphere? Okay. Yeah, so this really is what I like fell in love with about the Gene Keys system is it has that frequency spectrum really central. And that's really, so that's what it's called, a frequency spectrum, where you can see the shadow is that first word, which is inertia. The gift is determination. And then at the highest frequency possibility, it says invincibility. It's called the city. But I always just encourage my clients and anyone who's interested in my work at least to like focus more on that gift frequency, or sometimes I blend them together and just call them the high frequencies, because at that highest frequency, it's the city, and it's really when we've achieved this like enlightened state. So if we were really embodied in the city frequency of our profile, we likely wouldn't be human anymore. Or like,
Right.
so like, or it would be our last time on earth, right? Like we would just be like
Mm,
meditating in bliss all day, and we wouldn't have
right. Like
more work to do.
vibrating at that ohm frequency, like just one with the universe. Like
Exactly. We'd have no use for your Gene Keys profile anymore because it would be like irrelevant. You'd already be there. Um, so the gift frequency is a lot more human, like it's a lot more workable. So Jada, it's kind of funny just because of what we were talking about, like before you started recording the podcast. But um, this gift, so in your life's work, it's your strongest gift to share, and yours is actually determination. That's a gift. So it's really about this particular gene key is like about really understanding and embodying the concept that life is very much like one foot in front of the other. It's like baby
mm,
steps. And like the value of the baby steps in one consistent forward moving direction actually brings you to this like the place you want to be. And that's why it's called determination. So it's this like forward motion. It's about really paying attention to and like harnessing the small details of your day or of like whatever project you're working on, and like focusing on those small details, knowing that they're going to be the foundation for the whole thing. um, and will move you forward in a direction that's unstoppable, which is why the city's invincibility. So that's your gift. But as much as you hold that gift as a very strong part of you, right? This is the sun. So, really, when you're embodied in that gift frequency, other people are able to receive you because you're aligned with your authenticity. So, you're really aligned with who you are. And so, you like shine really bright to other people and they're able to recognize you. It has a lot to do with success, this placement too, because again, it is where the sun is when you're born, and so it's a success oriented placement, especially as it relates to work, which it does. The life's work placement relates to career and service in the world as well. So you have all of that potential, but just as much, it's like the opposite side of the same coin. There is the potential for inertia, so the shadow would exist in you as well, which is more about. And the I Ching name, so the ancient name for this particular gene key, when it was well, it is part of the I Ching, as the ninth hexagram of the I Ching. Not to get too like technical about it, but it's called the taming power of the small. So the shadow is really about like when the small details are kind of like running your show, rather than you
mm.
taming the small, right? And like making them work for you. They may make you work for them.
Ah, like the like obsessing about details?
Obsessing about details, or like over fixating on things that are maybe not as important as, they they're seeming at the time. Or losing, or the other possibility is like losing kind of control of the small details as well, or and like having like super messy room or like super messy desk, or it can play out in a variety of ways. But
Hmm.
yeah, it would be like an energy more that's like, instead of moving forward baby steps, it would be like kind of that energy that like revolves in a circle.
Mm.
Well, it's like, okay, now we're moving, but it's like in a circular fashion, right? Instead of forward. So
I totally get what you're saying. Yeah. Like It seemed like last year I was trying to figure out where I wanted to go with my business, and I was getting so caught up in what that looked like that I would just not end up not doing anything. Like,
Mhm.
I would start to do something and then go back to square one, and then start to do something else and then go back to square one.
Mhm.
Does that
Yeah, and
sound like it?
yeah, absolutely, and it's interesting you say that because the life's work sphere is connected to your sacral chakra, and so the shadow can be really tied to, when you're looping sort of on that shadow frequency, it can be difficult to access that like creative flow, and can really kind of cause ruts and stagnation in terms of like zapping that like life force from you, where it's like we're not waking up in the morning like motivated to create or to do. It's kind of just like tiring to be in that
Mm,
place.
mhm.
Does that resonate?
Yeah, like, it definitely has gone back and forth to where there's times where it feels like I wake up and I'm, like, ready to do the thing, and then there are days where I sleep until 9 o'clock and I don't meditate or do yoga in the morning.
Yeah, yeah, it's, I mean, the beautiful thing about the gene keys is, like, those are those are parts of us and they're there for a reason, so it's like, instead of us, like, beating ourselves up for often when I found the Gene Keys my Gene Keys profile, I was, like, confronted. I was like, "Oh my god, all of the bad habits or shadows and, like, those, like, deeper places of myself that I understood because I had done some quite a bit of healing work prior, but it was, like, all on this one piece of paper where I was like, "Whoa," like, but the cool thing about it is I could see it as the other side of a very high frequency expression of me. So it was like, oh, wait a second. It's not just that I'm like controlling. That's one of my biggest shadows in my profile. It's just the lower frequency expression of a gift. So it would be the same for you, right? So it's not just like, oh, sometimes I lose track of my day and I can get into this place where I'm just like not moving forward. It's just about harnessing the higher frequency. And the way we do that, especially through how I teach the gene keys, is diving into the shadow to learn what's behind that. So I always say, like, the how and the why that shadow comes to be and how it came to be, especially when we were younger. Um, so why do we lose track of time? How does it happen? What does it mean for us? Like, what are the limiting beliefs or the fears maybe behind that? Um, I'm just getting, like, the word procrastination now, and we're just talking about the night gene key where it's like
Mhm.
there's a lot that lives behind procrastination. It's
Oh,
not
yeah. It's like,
yeah,
maybe I'll just wait until I know how to do this perfectly.
exactly. Yes,
And then
exactly.
you never do it because you're just, like, waiting until you're, air quotes, "ready," but, like, waiting until you're ready is, like, the biggest lie that we tell ourselves, right? Because there's no
Oh,
teacher,
yeah.
like, actual experience.
You'll never you'll never be ready, especially when it comes to launching businesses, owning businesses. It's like you can't know everything that you will come up against. You just
Mhm.
do it at the time. Yep, yep,
Yeah, you
it's
just
so
gotta
true.
go for it and, like, learn as you go, but
Mhm, mhm.
yeah. So, I do wanna ask you too, while I'm looking at this, I know you said that the decimal point is a little, like, deeper, but I'm really intrigued because it says that mine says "fixer" next to it. It's 9.5, it says "fixer." Like, what does that
Yeah,
mean? Does
yeah.
that Sorry, go ahead.
No, so you have a 5 and it's the 5th gene key or the 5th line in your life's work, so you've got a 9.5?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, so those keywords, I think they're just there to evoke sort of the expression of the line number in that particular placement. So anyone who has like a 5th line in the life's work sphere would have that like fixer keyword there. Um, I don't like fully vibe with all of that. I do with some, but the reason why it says fixer is because the fifth line is it's like a teacher energy. It's a guide or a teacher energy. So there's 1 to 6. Those are the line potentials, where the first line is like the most internal kind of expression of the gene key. It's like the foundational energy of what it is. So wherever you see a first line, like the point 1 in your gene keys profile, those gene keys are really foundational to who you are, and they often play out in this way where you're like really assessing the energy and like investigating the energy in a very internal way with you. It's like super personal.
Hmm.
And then when you get to the fifth and sixth lines, those are more transpersonal. So it's more like, okay, we've understood that energy within ourselves and we've experimented with it and we've bounced it off other people. And it's like now we're stepping into like sharing it with others. So the fifth line is like teacher or guide like energy. So, first of all, having a fifth line there in general means that other people will see you, and it's probably a very authentic expression of who you are to be a teacher or a guide, in terms of like, yeah, somebody who like, stands maybe at the front of the room and is guiding others on a collective sense. So like a group sort of energy.
Hmm.
Yeah. So the 9.5 is, sometimes it can come through where it's like something that you're teaching or something that you're um, actually embodying in like a very external or collective sense. So you may be like, not literally, but just like the energy of kind of like standing in front of others as an example or a guide and what that energy is holding.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So for those of you listening, this is literally just the tip of the iceberg. Like,
Yes.
if you were helping a client, you said you have several different paths that you go through with clients. So, like, what are some of the big, like, breakthroughs or realizations that you've experienced or you've had clients experience just in knowing about their gene keys? Because hearing that is like, I feel like when something's true, like
Oh yeah.
when it's like for me, reading a Don Miguel Ruiz book, whenever I read Don Miguel Ruiz, it feels like I'm reading stuff that I already know, but it's like, oh wow, like hearing that from someone else is like, feels like confirmation, like this is like universal truth, you know what I mean?
Oh
So,
yeah.
anyways, random little side note, but what are some of the big what are some of the big breakthroughs that like you've had or you've had clients have just from knowing their gene keys?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, anytime I work with a client, the level of like you just expressed like that truth, that gives you goosebumps or brings you to tears, I sometimes can make you cry. Just
Mhm.
having somebody reiterate these things that you've already always felt and you've always known to be true, just reflected back to you, is just such a gift in itself. Um, you know, Everyone who has a gene key session has a different intention. Often, for me, a lot of people love to work with me in terms of like, what are my gifts and purpose? And then, how do I bring them through to work? So we would look at either, the activation sequence, which is the green gene keys, or the pearl sequence, which are the blue gene keys. Those are specific to like prosperity and fulfillment, and also how you're going to share your gifts with others through your service. So, very career oriented. And so, with clients, often, especially with Gene Key sessions specifically, there's a level of confirmation that either they're on track or maybe they're off track and they're working like corporate job, but they're wanting to transition into something that feels more like them. And so we really narrow down the energies that would feel most correct. Because truly, when you're embodying your Gene Keys profile, you feel like you're in alignment. You feel it right away, and everything starts to flow a lot easier than like almost trying to like paddle upstream. It's like being able to actually catch that stream. Um, but I always say the Gene Keys profile, like a Gene Keys session, is just the beginning. So often it provides this like beautiful confirmation of whatever the person is experiencing already or wanting to move towards. But there's a whole unfolding throughout life with your Gene Keys profile because it's a portal to your soul. So afterwards, I always encourage, I send journal prompts and all of that kind of support that I have on my Instagram as well, where it's about diving into the shadow. So let's say, somebody wanted to, or I can use myself as an example too, because I can give you real, some detailed information. So
Yeah.
so when I was transitioning out of my corporate job, I was looking a lot again at like those elements of my Gene Keys profile as well, because I was really focused on my career, and what I was going to do with service, with in terms of service through my gifts. So I was looking at the culture sphere. So the culture sphere of your Gene Keys profile is really this like place that holds prosperity and fulfillment. And it's this place where it's like the way you fit into the fabric of society. Like if we're all this like big quilt of different energies, it's like, what place do you fill with the energy only you can, right?
Mhm.
And so for me, I have the eighth gene key there, which is a very individual, almost eccentric, honestly, sometimes type of leadership. And it's like a leadership through doing. And the gift is style. So it's like really about going your own way and like carving your own path. And then the shadow is mediocrity. So it's like this, it's like not doing that. It's following this.
Right, like working in a corporate job where your intuition is like, "Hey girl, what are you doing?"
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah.
So when I saw that, I thought, wow, okay, well, no wonder, I ended up making good money. That wasn't the problem, but that fulfillment, like the deep fulfillment, was of course not there. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I could
I'm
see
not saying your
why.
job was mediocre. I'm just saying, like I'm
Well,
just saying I could see where that's, like, the shadow of, like, your career even.
totally. I mean, yeah, it's mediocrity is more like, I mean, that could be style for somebody else, right? But it's like following the status quo and like
Mm,
and not following your path. That's truly what it's about. So when I worked through, so for me it was unpacking why. Like why do I choose to stay in these this expression of me? Like what is the fear that holds me back from stepping into the more of that expression of self that is like different, right? That's definitely going to draw attention because it's a little bit off the beaten path. And the eighth gene key really holds a fear of rejection.
oh.
Yeah, of course, right? To stand out, to stand out, we have to be okay with not everyone being cool with it. Um, and so working through that shadow and being able to connect with the high frequencies has been extremely beneficial, of course, for my work. I wouldn't be doing what I do now if I hadn't worked through that. So that's one specific example, but
Yeah,
I could
that's
give so many.
amazing though that, like, your Gene Keys profile was able to show you, like, "Okay, there's gonna be a challenge here, and this is how I can kind of navigate it."
Yeah, absolutely. It's very
Yeah.
workable in that way. No matter what you're going through, right? Because again, like each of the spheres is a really specific aspect of your life. We haven't talked about the Venus sequence, but it's the red gene keys that run up through the heart of your profile, and
Mm.
it's your entire heart chakra.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if you want to go on like a really deep healing journey, oh my gosh, like you flow through those, and it's it's very powerful.
Wow.
So,
It's
yeah.
really interesting to me. One of mine says intoxication as, like, the essence, and that almost seem like, to me, I wouldn't connotate that, or I wouldn't, like, think think of intoxication as, like, a good thing.
Which is the gene key?
It's on EQ. It
Okay,
says
okay.
56.
Okay, the 56th gene key. Yeah. Okay, so the city is intoxication. Yeah. So, oh, that's yeah. I mean, yeah, that's interesting. There are some cities that are strange. There's a couple in there that are like can throw you off with the word. And some of the shadows too, I find can be like either like really strong or maybe a word that is not that we don't associate with something like necessarily super negative. But they're really just like keywords that sort of evoke the energy of the actual placement. Um,
Okay.
Yeah, so with the 56 gene key, the gift is really about sharing, like, it's a really strong gift of storytelling.
Oh, I
Um,
see.
yeah, it's a strong gift of storytelling, but in a way that's, like, actually beneficial to others through what you're saying. So it's, like,
Mm.
enriching to others, you're speaking about things from a high vibrational place that are really, like, hitting to the heart of who they are, and that's like essential for them to know in terms of like who they are and how it's intentionally shared so that others can evolve forward. So it's shared from sort of an intentional place. But the
Okay.
yeah, and it's interesting you have it in the EQ sphere because the EQ sphere is a very emotional placement. It has to do with the time period between 7 to 14 when we develop emotionally, when we're sort of like little kids, but we're coming to know that like people have feelings and we have feelings and getting acquainted with that, right? So we're really developing emotionally and the shadow of that particular gene key. And again, this is like part of the heart chakra. So it's like a story that we hold in the heart and when
Mm.
yeah, and when you're winding back to the EQ sphere, it's like you're starting to remove these like layers on top of your heart.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, like the layers that we put on through conditioning over time that kind of take us away from who we really are, right? And our actual heart center and intuition. So this is like getting back to more of the truth of who you are. But the shadow frequency is really like this emotional defense mechanism that could come through. Sometimes it develops at that time, right, from 7 to 14, or as a result of things that occurred in life during that time. But it's really like what we take on to sort of like shield us from emotional pain. Um, either whether it's coming from like outside of us or we're like trying to turn away from like how we feel. But that's really what the EQ sphere is all about. So working through the shadow there is like, so it's storytelling, or so it would be storytelling to yourself, maybe more in terms of the heart path. Um, Storytelling to yourself that kind of distract you from the truth or the heart of a matter.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why that made me think of like Pisces. My moon sign is Pisces. But
Okay.
like
Yeah,
it makes me think of like kind of like daydreaming to distract yourself from what's actually happening.
100%.
Okay,
100%.
interesting. It's interesting how deep all of these go.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating to me, like, every single time is, you hold that gene key there and it just evoked something, like a connection right away for you, and somebody else would say, "Oh, like, I've distracted my whole life through, like, smoking weed," or whatever, right? Like,
Right.
because we can numb or distract in a very variety of ways, right? From it, but it's all with the intention of sort of covering up like the truth or the heart of the matter or what we are trying to not look at or see. So it
Mm.
plays out completely differently for everybody, and that's why it's like that personal journey. So that's really
Wow.
cool.
So
Hmm.
even within the chart, there are so many different, I mean, like I was saying before, the life's work one is really just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many little paths that you can go on through this to go on different types of healing journeys. And it's really interesting too, like both of the things that you said resonated really deeply with me. Like the life's work one, kind of like how you were saying earlier, how you felt like the gene keys kind of found you.
Yes.
Like that's not the first time on this podcast we've heard somebody say like this healing modality found me. Like I feel like this thing found me, right?
Mhm.
And that's how it felt for me with yoga. And I am now teaching yoga to other people, and I teach workshops and all kinds of stuff where I'm up in front of people teaching,
Oh,
and
there you
that's
go.
under my life's purpose.
Yes. Yeah.
And then same with the what you're saying with the heart chakra. Actually, when I was doing my yoga teacher training, I had a really big release from my heart chakra from something I was holding on to for a long, long time from when I was about 10 years old. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's really
Yeah.
interesting to hear you say these things and then they resonate so, so deeply. So, how exactly do you work with clients? You like choose a path to go on and you help them move through that? And you also do something called psych K, but that's probably a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I work with clients in a few different ways. I kind of close the loop on, the whole process. So I have Gene Key sessions available, and those are just, I like calling them freestyle sessions because they're sort of client led, and we just set the intention at the beginning of the session that whatever needs to, because there's so much in the profile, right? Like
Mm,
we won't get to all of it, but we'll certainly get to the most relevant parts for you right now. So we set that intention that whatever comes forward is for the highest benefit for them, what they most need right now. And so, usually there's an intention like, I'm transitioning careers, or, what is my most aligned work? Like, how can I be more of service? What are my gifts? And then, or, with the heart healing, that has a lot to do with like relationships and heightening intuition. So those are often like the big buckets. But as we just start kind of flowing through the session, we just like dance around the profile and paint this like just crazy picture of whatever needs to come forth for them right now to hear, so that they can get into alignment immediately, but then also have the tools to continue the healing and unpacking through journaling prompts, and however that's going to unfold for them post session. So there's always like that post session integration period as well. So Gene Key sessions, yeah, I do Psych K. So Psych K kind of comes in after, no, not necessarily after. You don't necessarily need to be interested in the Gene Keys to benefit from Psych K, but Psych K is a subconscious healing modality. So, if, let's say, Jada, you were like, I I have these stories from the past that I can feel like on my heart, and I need some healing around, whatever happened when I was young, where I just like didn't want to look at it till now. So like focusing on that distraction element, we would dive into limiting beliefs and actually transmuting limiting subconscious beliefs and um, past pain or trauma that holds you back from the high frequencies of your gene keys profile, or just in general having a peaceful and aligned life. So Psych K comes in to actually, because I used to get the question every single time, like after a session, it's like, okay, well, now I know what the shadows, I feel myself there sometimes more often than I want to be. What can I do about it? So there's a whole range of things that you can do about it. But for me, the most potent healing modality I've come across is Psych K because it targets healing on a subconscious level. Um, and then I have a program that combines it all. So if like,
nice.
yeah, so if you're wanting like that full experience where it's like we're diving into your Gene Keys profile, but we're also like, going through the Psyche process to transmute what it is that we find, I put them together too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So I think something maybe a lot of people don't realize whenever they're going on these healing journeys and they're using healing modalities is something that you briefly said, and that was the integration period. We have that time where we're learning something, and maybe, you're looking at your Gene Keys profile for the first time. That's one step. And that's like maybe 20% of it. And then the other 80% is learning how to really integrate it into your life and bring
Mhm.
about lasting effects from it, like even, with plant medicine, with yoga, with meditation, with anything, anytime you're having some kind of realization or learning a lesson, applying it into your life is like, that's the work.
Oh my god, completely, and I think we don't talk about that enough
No.
in our space. Um, I find because it's like especially, like, North American culture, it's like, "Fast, now," like, "Is it over with? Are we there yet?" You know? But with healing and, choosing this type of, path of self-awareness is like it unfolds, like, over time, it unfolds
Absolutely.
in layers and
There's
allows us to
no
go
like
deeper.
there's no like point A to point B. Like a lot of
No.
people, especially in, the coaching industry and the self-development world, there's this idea around like unhealed, healed,
Yes.
right? But
Yes.
it's so constant. You know what I mean? It's not something that's just like, "Oh, yeah, I healed that already. It's gone."
Oh, yeah.
Like, maybe maybe there are things that, you move past and you grow from and you do feel like that part of you is healed, but it's still like a conscious effort to integrate the lessons that you've learned every single day. Like, for me, gossip was and has been in the past a really difficult thing for me to consciously not do
Mhm.
because it's something that so many people bond over. So
Yeah.
many people just want to sit around and talk about who they hate and who did what and who's dating who. And I'm like, can we talk about ideas, y'all?
Yeah. Eh
But it can be so easy to just slip back into an old pattern because it's what feels comfortable.
Absolutely. Yeah, and those are like comfort loops too, right? It's
Mhm.
it's just, it's the our ego goes there because it's just comfy, and, yeah, like you said, it's interesting too because when we heal sort of a layer, like, on a real level where it's like, why do I feel comfortable in gossip? Get to the root of that, it might kind of it's definitely healing, but then it can shift form a little bit, right? Where it's like, okay, now I can see it happening, but it's like playing out a little bit different. So these shadows, in your Gene Keys profile, you can totally work through them. I call, the frequency spectrum a ladder because it's
Mhm.
not, yeah. And again, like you were saying, like, it's not a light switch. It's not like there's one, two, three, right? Even though there's three words, there's like infinite
It's like a
level.
gradient.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly,
like there's those 3 words and everything in between.
exactly, exactly. And we can move up and down, and we do, depending on our mood and depending on the day, but the goal is to take those sort of quantum leaps up. I always say, like, we move like 20 rungs of the ladder up, and now we like oscillate between 5 that are a little bit higher, but we still have our lows and we still have our moments, and heaven forbid something happen that we like, we really shift down. It can happen because we go through things that cause us to revert back or that challenge us, and it's life.
And that comes with its own set of lessons because 'cause we're human and that's why we're here.
Exactly. Mhm, mhm.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all this info, Jordan. This has been a really enlightening conversation.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So where can people find you?
So my Instagram is jordan.cardarelli. Everything is linked through my Instagram, so you can go check that out. I share a lot of kind of like free information about the Gene Keys too, if you're interested. And I have a website. It's jordancardarelli.com. So those are the two main places you can find me.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for tuning in today, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to pop over to your favorite podcasting platform and write me a review. I would appreciate it so much. Also, If you would like to be part of a community of intuitives, starseeds, empaths, people who are here to help raise the vibration of the collective, people who are sensitive to other energy and get what you're going through, pop over to Facebook and join the private Oracle Aura community. It's called Intuitive Souls Seeking Inner Peace. And every Saturday, I'll be hosting a self-care Saturday where we'll talk about different things like how to get grounded within your own energy, how to hold space for others, and all that good stuff. So again, that's Facebook, and the group is called Intuitive Souls Seeking Inner Peace. Thank you so much, guys. Namaste.